Welcome to the Leadership Journal with your hosts, Nick Helgett and Robby Woodard,
where we cover our journey, struggles, and obstacles that we have overcome, and moments in our careers that have led to growth. Here on Table Talk each week, where we break down various topics and journals of our trials and tribulations. There we go. Now we're recording. We're live. All right, Nick. So today we're going to be introducing everybody to something that's a passion of both of ours. And for everyone who's interested in hopping in and joining us here in this conversation, we're working through a title still, but it's about leadership and our journeys and what got us to where we are today.
All right, so tell me a little bit about where your journey started.
My journey in particular?
Yeah. Let's start with your name. Let's give an introduction to yourself. A little bit about your background. What got you started on this journey?
All right. Everyone knows who Nick is, the guy across from me. But I'm Robby, and
Nobody knows me.
Not yet. They don't. My name is Robby Woodard, and I have been a leader for a little over a decade. I have been an hourly supervisor. I've been a assistant manager. Been a project manager. I've been a training facilitator. I've been a logistics manager. Over the last 11 years, almost 12 years, I have learned a lot about how people are appreciated, how they want to be appreciated, how they want to be led in different capacities, what inspiring and motivating truly mean. And then the what I originally called a buzzword, now I enjoy it a lot, is the word feedback, and bringing that forward from people and trying to understand that on different levels. How about yourself?
Well, I worked for a large corporation for 20 years. I tried to take a very, very short hiatus into my first leadership role as a director of maintenance. That lasted all of 3 weeks because I realized I was not ready for a role like that. Went back to my corporate job, worked my way through various roles of importance, learning the business as much as I could. Ended up getting into a lead position, which started my leadership career. I had a passion for wanting to do more, and I wanted to model myself after influential leaders. And I had an idea, a romanticized idea of what leadership was. And it got me interested, so I started reading books. I got the lead position, and within 6 months I was promoted into a supervisor position with not a competing company, but a manufacturing company.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at that job for almost 2 years now, and I have a slightly different perspective because I haven't been in a leadership role as long, but 2+ years. But I also have a lot of hourly perspective. 20 years with the same company is a long time. A lot of lessons learned, and I'd like to share those with that from my perspective. And I'd like to unfold what drives me as a leader as we go through this experience.
And one of the fun things that I just want to cover real fast that I think inspired you to take that step, which I'm frustrated with you when you took the step, but also I was very happy for you when you took that step, is when I was your boss for about 6 to 7 weeks. Then you took that promotion just, what was it, after Thanksgiving 2 years ago?
It was December. I ended up leaving my previous employer the week of Christmas, so a few days after Christmas.
Okay, so it was after Christmas. That whole time frame got really blurry.
2022.
Yeah, and when you were my hourly supervisor, so you reported to me, that was a very fun journey for both of us. I'd come from a very different background. I just worked in a different portion of the building, came over, took on being your supervisor. And then you and I had a lot of great conversations. And I think where we are today, watching you grow in this role has been awesome. And it gives me more time to reflect on how I can be better. in the things that I do as well. Because your take is a lot different from my take.
Yep, I agree. So, what got you passionate in the first place to want to pursue leadership?
Well, when I first started being a leader, my first ever fortnight, I think I told you this story. When I got promoted at my first employer, I had no experience in leading people whatsoever. I was on this mission to figure out how that was going to work, and I wanted to be in the film industry. I wanted to be a producer. The director of the program at my school at the time said, "Well, you need leadership experience to be a producer." An opportunity came up at work. I took the opportunity. I had a team of 14 people. We were bringing inventory into the building. We were unloading trailers every day. And I was ruling the way that I had been shown by the people who had shown me that that's the method in which you lead people, is by authority and by your badge. Didn't go well.
No.
Did not go well at all.
Leading by title is never successful.
No, it's not.
It can drive results,
but
it does not instill trust in your team.
Well, not only does it not instill trust, but it breeds negativity. It breeds a bad culture. It breeds animosity. And as a leader that wants to be successful, once animosity reaches the boiling point, two things happen. You either get removed from your position, or you hit the cusp and you do a full 180, and now you're working towards positivity. You're not there, but you're working towards it.
And what I mean by you get results, you get immediate results. It's not sustainable.
Nope. Why is it not?
Because you lose people. Nobody wants to work for you. People don't leave. I see a meme constantly running around, the internet, and you always believe everything you see on the internet. But I do feel like this is true, and that's people don't leave bad jobs; they leave bad bosses.
Well, and hang on to that word for a second, boss.
Yep.
Not it. We're gonna come back to that 100%.
But it's true.
Yeah.
Right. If you've got a leader that tears you down every day, makes you feel like garbage, which I worked for plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't push you to want to be better. If you see somebody that is passionate about what they do, they are driven for their own results, for their own growth, and they want to share that with people, that inspires you to want to do more. That inspires you to want to be like, you know what, I kind of want to go the extra mile. I want to know what he's got, or she's got, or they've got. I want to know. And that is a really hard thing to figure out for yourself, because you think it's an easy answer. As an hourly person, you think it's an easy answer.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, oh, yeah, I can lead people. I can do this. I can do this job. There's so much unwritten material that you have to learn. And I say it like that because there's, as of recently, probably in the last few years, you start seeing more authors coming out with better leadership material for you to try to absorb. And that's what really got me set on the right path of, the first leadership book that I cracked open, I didn't quite understand. I did to an extent, mm-hmm. Right? It was one of John C. Maxwell's books. And right now the title is escaping me, probably because I've been up since...
Is it the 5 levels of leadership?
No. Developing the Leader Within You.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I've not read that one yet.
Great book. It just, I think it was a little more philosophical than I needed at the time. And so when I transitioned over to Extreme Ownership, the way that book was written, from, experiences and stories that they were telling that they learned in the military, and how they transferred those lessons into the civilian world, into the corporate world, into building their business, building themselves as leaders, because not everybody's a soldier, right? Mm-hmm. Not everybody's a Navy SEAL. So learning how to lead people that were not in the military, it made so much more sense to me, because it was down to the point. And when you mentioned feedback, I felt like reading that book, I was getting feedback, because I could start pinpointing things in my life, my personal life, and how I conducted myself at work, to start looking at things inward, taking accountability for myself, my own actions, to develop myself first. Because I can't, if I don't develop me, I can't develop anybody on my team. It's just, it's not possible.
Nope.
Because you're going to develop them in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that book was a very, finishing that first book, Extreme Ownership, was a very pivotal point for me in my starting my journey and getting it off on the right foot. And then I read Dichotomy of Leadership, and then went back to Extreme Ownership, read it again. You know, and if you've ever seen my copy, it's full of dog ears, bookmarks, highlights, and I swear by that book.
You are the kind of person that I could never be. I can't dog ear a page. I can't highlight a book. I can't write in a book. It just, I put sticky notes before I write on the page of the book. Even though we were told in college, it's yours. Write in it. No, I can't.
That's what I learned in college.
I can't. I'll take notes all day long.
Look on that shelf behind you. I've got all sorts of college books back there that I never turned back in because they're full of my garbage.
But going back to when I started, ruling by authority, ruling by title, I was like not even 3 weeks in yet. My team walked out on me. My team disappeared for about an hour and a half. Couldn't find them. Everything was at a standstill. They
literally disappeared.
They literally disappeared.
Oh,
they literally walked out on me. And then they came back. We had a good heart-to-heart. We talked about stuff. The following day, my boss pulled me in with his peer, the night shift manager, the day shift manager, and they said, "You've got 3 days. Figure it out, or we're gonna have to replace you." Well, that was 11 years. That was 11 years ago. I figured something out. I did that role for about 13, 14 months before I moved on. But that was a turning point for me. That told me, you don't lead by title. You don't lead by, hey, I'm in charge. You do what I say. That's what builds negativity. There's going to be those people on your team. You have to rule by authority because they don't know anything else, or there's no winning them over. They have to be led in a particular manner, and it's very difficult to balance that part. But then there's the other people on your team where you can take on the extreme ownership tactics. You can take on the John C. Maxwell, developing yourself, or even 5 levels of leadership, taking the steps to build the relationships with your team, to do more.
It's paramount.
Because there's bosses and then there's leaders.
And that's how I took my approach as a lead, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't come out there and be like, oh, I'm your lead, I'm above you. I went and started getting to know people, started building relationships. And that's what I've done as a supervisor as well. I started building relationships. I started trying to figure out how a person ticks. And that's been the most fun part of being a leader is getting to know people. And I've heard as of recently, people say, oh, you have to manipulate. It's a manipulation game. And I disagree with that.
I disagree with that as well.
I have never manipulated any of my people that used to be poor performers. Now, with that being said, they're not the best. Like, not everybody on my team is the best top performer in the mill. It's a growth. It's a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I had somebody that was completely closed off, you couldn't give them feedback. Their peers wouldn't talk to them. I just sat down and said, are you okay one day? Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do to help? Like, how do, and I started asking questions like, is everything cool at home? Like, just, how many kids do you have kids? I started just kind of like asking a question, getting her to open up. And then pretty soon we were talking. And then pretty soon it's, hey, I need help over here. What do you think the best way to attack this is? Because, I'm still a new supervisor. I'm new to this company. You've been here longer than I have. How would you attack this problem? Oh, and then I started realizing that they responded more when they felt valued. And call it manipulation or not, I don't think it is. But I keyed in on that. Got them more, started taking them on Gemba walks, started seeking their opinion for process improvement. all of a sudden I have this team member writing diagrams of how we can do better more efficient travel paths through the mill. They were taking it upon themselves to help their peers. I did my first round of annual reviews, and I had 6 people on my team come in and say, I just want you to know before you give them their review, they're awesome now. They have improved so much, and I don't know what changed, but they're awesome now. And they were just vouching for this person. And that, I mean, it still gives me goosebumps. Like, I reached somebody on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
I changed somebody's perspective. Maybe not completely, but I helped them be better.
My favorite part about that is that everyone, like you had said, everyone thinks it's manipulation. It's not. Everyone has something to offer in one capacity or another, whether they're introverted, they're extroverted, they're ambiverted, they're boisterous, they're quiet. You can have the quietest extrovert on the planet on your team not know how to approach someone that's new because they don't want to offend somebody. Yeah. Or you can have an introvert that's very analytical, that can understand everything, but then they've had too many interactions with somebody that they create negative space whenever they try to provide feedback or criticism to somebody in a manner which they think is how they need to deliver that message. So they're shut off. They're afraid. They don't want to have that repeated environment anymore.
And I don't want to use a lot of cuss words here, but nobody wants to come to work every day and feel like shit.
No,
and feel like nobody likes them, and not know how to get themselves out of that spot. But somebody offers an olive branch, and that starts to grow. I had a point in my head. Keep going.
My favorite part about building relationships with people is, like you had said, that there's meme going around, people quit bad bosses.
Yes.
Or not just bad environments. Your boss is your environment. Your leader is your environment. If you want to be part of a winning team, want to have winning teams in any organization, you need to have effective culture builders and effective team leaders. Even if you're a supervisor or you're just an hourly, or if you are on the hourly spectrum of leadership.
Well, leaders are on every level.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're at the bottom of line of progression in a union,
or even the entry point guy into a non-union environment. You can lead by example by just doing, but you have to put yourself intentionally in that spot.
People mistake being a leader as telling people what to do. Being a leader doesn't mean you're telling people what to do. It means you're supportive. It means you're out there going the extra mile. You're leading by example. You're doing the things to help the team be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And people lose that point. Just like the point that I was going to make a few minutes ago and completely lost.
Have I ever told you my golden throne theory?
No.
So when you envision the word boss, where do you picture the person sitting that's in charge?
On their pedestal.
Okay. And then where are the people
the pedestal that they put themselves on?
Where are the people that are following them?
Out in front.
Or beneath them, right? Carrying them.
Well, yeah, because I have this picture in my head of somebody up on a actual pedestal, sitting in a chair, and all their people are in front of them, basically pulling them along.
Mm-hmm.
And a leader is out in front, saying, "Come on, guys, let's get this. Let's do this."
And they're carrying that workload with their team.
Yep.
They're not sitting in the pedestal. I mean, every now and then the leader does have to take a back seat to see how the team does without them. But you shouldn't spend more than 20% of your time in the back seat.
I want my team, I want that trust so I can know that if I'm not there, my team's functions fine without me.
Uh-huh. Now, organizations will function with or without you as a leader because they're designed with formats to where the people...
Yeah, but I can trust that they are making the decisions to stay busy, because the old adage, while the boss is away, the mice will play, or whatever it is. And I truly believe that the bulk of my team, if I'm not there, are doing the right things. The bulk. Now there's those outliers, and I know who they are. It's no secret.
Mm-hmm.
But am I going to chastise them for being that way? No. I'm going to work on building that relationship.
Inspiring integrity, inspiring motivation, and pushing them to do more, being selfless and not being selfish. One of the things that my first organization taught me was the act of being a servant leader, being there for your people.
That's the point that I romanticized to myself. I wanted to be there to remove obstacles, to help people be successful. Because it's not about me.
Why not?
Because the enjoyment comes from watching someone else succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about me.
Well, and something that I had to learn along the way, I was one of the best overnight stockers, one of the best overnight inventory controllers, one of the best inventory counters. I became a supervisor. Didn't matter anymore. I could be the best at something. If I was not helping my team to succeed, I was failing. If I am taking point and I am separating myself by metrics, separating myself by efficiencies, productivity, by numbers, and not by skill sets, not by relationships, not by team bonding, and focusing on what keeps the team moving forward, I'm failing wholeheartedly because I am creating negative spaces for my team.
The caveat to that is you have to be careful building relationships that they don't, then it becomes impossible for you to discipline.
Yes.
And that is a hard lesson I had to learn. That I went too far one way, thinking that because I do work in a union environment, that discipline is out of my realm of decision rights, right? We talk about decision rights a lot as well, you all know, in my place of employment. Talk a lot about decision rights. And it felt that just because there's a union there, that they have most of the power. Do they have a lot of power? Yeah. If you break a labor agreement, they're going to own you. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I try not to do that because, number one, labor agreements exist for a good reason. My previous employer used to they show you the anti-union propaganda videos and how unions are terrible, and maybe they have been at one point. Maybe they're not good in all businesses. Maybe they're not good in all situations. It depends on who's running it. But I do think that unions have their place, and they do a fair amount of good. But learning through that process of trying to administer discipline, having that shot down by the union because of a wording or some small technicality, that's the bad part of a union. They're going to protect the bad with the good because that's their job. That's what they're there for. So people that are not good fits or not good employees because they're in the union and tend to keep their jobs much longer, they're probably what they should, because they have a line of defense that non-union facilities just don't have. Mm-hmm. So, but even if I was to be promoted from an hourly lead into an operations manager position in my previous employer, those relationships that I built as a lead, looking back on it, may have been hard to administer discipline, especially if it's somebody deserved termination because they did something egregious. But with that being said, it was good for me to leave that position and go to a different company because it allowed me to decompress from 20 years of frustration in certain aspects of jobs. I was starting fresh. I was able to come in with a good perspective and take lessons learned, and knowing how I didn't want to be and the person that I wanted to strive to be was easier to be that person because I'm starting clean. Most of the people there, with the exception of a few former employees that used to work there that were at my new employer, most of them didn't know me very well. Didn't work the same shifts, or we just hadn't worked together in a very long time. but being able to put your personal feelings aside because you've built a good relationship with that person and be like, well, this is policy. We have to follow policy. We have to, follow these lines of rules or processes.
Mm-hmm.
And holding those people accountable. Because for me, accountability starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with the person. And I never understood that sometimes you're having to talk to an adult that might be older than you, that in my mind should know better, and you're having to have a conversation with them, of a disciplinary conversation of, come on, man.
Figure it out.
Like that I think is the hardest part of the job, is having to have that. It's like I'm talking to my daughter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we the word gets thrown around a lot in organizations at the moment. I call it a buzzword. I call it a power word. I think it's stupid that organizations use it, but coaching. Now, there is a time and a place for the word to be used, and I'm growing on the thought process. The word is kind of building its way through my thought process, but we have to take the word and we have to inspire, influence, motivate, and attract positivity from everybody, no matter the current situation or wherever you're at. And the hardest thing to do is having the courageous conversations, having the deep conversations, and letting someone know, hey, you're going down a path that you could end up not being able to come out of.
Right.
And
because like I had a conversation where accountability always comes up in conversation. The teams always want more accountability. They want accountability. Screaming for accountability. And I said, one of the things that perspectives I had him look at, I said, okay, accountability, great. Let's go down this. Let's have a talk about accountability. So, do you want me, who's never done your job before, because it's a union job, I'm not allowed to. So I don't have the same experience that I did at my previous employer, being an hourly person going into a lead position. I did those job processes. I was dang good at them, and I knew I was, but I knew I could teach how to teach somebody through something they didn't understand, right? Or a more efficient way of doing a process, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. I can't do that here because I've never done that process. I can give a general idea of what I think, in theory, would be a good way, and I'm okay with having somebody push back and say, well, that's why that's not a good idea, because of X, Y, and Z factor that, I'm just not going to see because I don't have that. I'm not going to see because I don't have that perspective. And so I said, so do you want me to coach you through a problem, or would you rather take a look at yourself, hold yourself accountable, and do the right thing because you know the job better than I do? And I got a look of, crap. So again, we can go down that road and I can hold people accountable. I can start doing write-ups if that's what you truly want, but I don't think that's what you want.
Well, the beautiful part with that is you actually inspired accountability. Everyone puts this negative connotation on the word, but being accountable means to take ownership, to take responsibility, to own whatever is in front of you, whether it be good or bad, positive or negative. Like if you have integrity, if you have motivation, if you have inspiration to be successful, you're accountable to what you're doing. And if you are not, if you don't have the will, the urge, the need to want to succeed, well, then you're gonna have an opposite reaction when it comes to accountability, because you're gonna feel the pressure from those that are doing better, that are succeeding, and at some point they're gonna start dragging you behind, and the road rash is real in that instance.
I want to hear a story from you. And as soon as I start talking about it, you're going to know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it's a team member that used to be on your team that has probably the best work ethic that I've ever seen.
Absolutely the best work ethic.
You know exactly what I'm talking
about. Absolutely the best work ethic, yeah.
So do you know what story I'm talking about? I'm
waiting for you to tell me.
Okay. you had to explain that just because he works at this level doesn't mean person A has the capabilities to be able to be at that same level.
Yeah.
So good performance for this person is different from good performance for them. So talk through that.
I appreciate, and I 100%.
Because you got through to him better than anybody has ever gotten.
And that was not easy. Okay.
That
was,
and that still holds true today.
That was a case of I saw me in a different form, and I had a feeling that by just talking to this team member, that after a while with conversations, it wouldn't be about.
So you could see like your own struggles in your.
I could see my struggles with this
in your work life,
in what I had been through. I could relate to this person.
So you
100%.
You could detach and actually give some and then be able to reflect on what the advice that you just gave.
And my favorite part about conversations with this person, they were real. They were real frustrations. They were real agitations. But the place that they came from was a 100% willingness to try to help somebody else succeed, whether they wanted to or not. And the hard part was for that person and me to get to a point where they could say, okay, how do I stop being critical to a point where it's negatively impacting me? This person has some of the best ability to analyze, to dissect, to view processes, find efficiencies, but then communicate with people in such a way that when they're frustrated, it comes out the way they don't intend. When they take a moment and they breathe, like you've heard me go off on people, and then I have to dial it back, and I have to reassess, and I have to breathe. And then I take another shot at it in a different light. It comes across better. And then that reattempt at the message comes across better. For me, the hard part is getting people to see that. Especially when I worked at my first job, they wanted to write me up and fire me because I refused to do a process that I thought was wasting my time. I transferred stores. The same job, different store. Still refused to do that process. They wanted to write me up and fire me in that store for that. Well, then lo and behold, a month later, they got rid of the process because I was right. They were wasting time following this process. The entire company shifts away from it. Now, if you try to do that process today, you will get removed because you're wasting time.
So that goes kind of back to leadership capital, right? You have to be able to put money in the bank to be able to see some reward. So sometimes if it's a process, if it's a plan that your boss or somebody is trying to get you to execute, and you push back and you're like, boss, the yada yada XYZ, I see problems here. The team's got these concerns, and then at the end of the day, they're like, no, you need to do it. Sometimes you got to do it because you have to build trust with your leader as well. And so then once they see that you can follow and take instruction and you have that understanding between the two of you, next time when you come up with a concern, they might listen a little more. They might be a little more receptive. So you got to build that account, that capital, to be able to sometimes have influence over your boss, over your leader.
It's the same in change.
Mm-hmm. Works both ways with your hourly force and with your upper. That's the joy and awfulness of being in middle management.
So being a frontline leader, you have three worlds that you live in every day. You have your team's world that you have built, you have fostered, you have created. You have your boss's world that you have to report to, listen to, filter information through. Then you have your space. Now, you may not get to retract to your space very often every day, but you have a place to go. You have to, as a frontline leader, remember, you need to take time away from your boss and from your team to rebuild and re-energize to be able to handle everything every day.
Which is what I need to be better at, of blocking out time on my calendar for me time.
Literally do what I did at my last job.
Just
put a invite on your calendar that everyone sees. It says, I put unavailable.
Yep.
Or even just like me time.
Just to be able to sit down and have a sandwich and eat your lunch,
Yeah.
you know, and not be interrupted 17 times until you're, you know, your whatever you're eating's cold.
But anyone can put anything on their calendar.
Right.
Anyone can have a. If you use day planners, if you use Microsoft Office Suite, if you use Teams, use any kind of planner and it has accessible, if that notification pops up on your phone, you see what time it is and it's on your day planner, or you see it on your computer, and you click snooze, you've already forfeited your time because you've said, my time is not important. I need to be busy.
Yep.
Remembering to accept that invite or to put away everything for 15 minutes a day is the most powerful thing for any leader to do.
Yep.
And even, heck, one of the best ways to do it is if you're in me time and one of your team wants to talk to you in me time, and if they know it's your me time, just say, hey, nothing about work. And you invite in a lot of different things in that moment or in that 15 minutes than you would ever expect to receive.
So I know we are kind of all over the place in our introductory episode here, but we wanted to kind of give a holistic view of what you can expect from time spent with us. Now, you know, there's plans in the future to have much more targeted conversation, but I think it was a good opportunity for us to kind of give a little bit of insight of where our passion lies and why we're doing what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing that story I want to share, and what still gives me goosebumps today, and those success stories, right? Always hold on to your success stories. So no matter where you go, you're applying for new jobs or whatever, those are the things that the way you engage your team is so paramount to showing the type of leader that you are. Yeah. And early on at my time at my current employer, I had heard this mentality amongst the hourly workforce that a prior leader had said that the department that we're in, we're running large equipment. It's dangerous. It takes skill to operate. And I know that most of the people listening to this aren't going to know what a roll grab is, but it's a very large piece of equipment that carries 3,000-pound rolls around a mill.
Sometimes 4 or 5.
Yep, that are getting converted into finished product to be able to sell. And it is a very dangerous job. It takes skill and know-how to perform that with, number one, efficiency, let me rephrase that. Number one, safely, and number two, efficiently. It takes time to develop that efficiency. But there's this perception that it's unskilled labor.
Yep.
Based on a comment that was made by a prior leader. And I had one of my team members come in and say, this is a line progression job. It's unskilled labor. I've got nowhere to go. Why am I here? I said, well, let's take a look at this, because I don't agree. And he said, sure, you're in line of progression, so you can't move from, we call it a material handler, right? That's one of the lower progression positions. And it takes you a while to move up that ladder until you get into the loader position, yada, yada. And so to them, it was a waiting game until the next position opened. I said, okay, so how are you biding your time? I was like, there are extracurricular things that you can do outside of line of progression, right? There's ERT. I was like, do you have a passion for what an EMT does? Do you want to be in the medical field someday? Because this is a younger person, you know. She's like, well, I didn't. I've never really thought about it. And I said, okay, well, what about applying to be part of the ERT team? Because I mean, we're at a mill out in the middle of nowhere. Our ERT team isn't just going and giving somebody first aid or a Band-Aid. Like, they're doing full-fledged EMT work. They're doing full-fledged firefighting. Like, you could find that all of a sudden doing these extracurricular things that you have a passion for this. Maybe you don't want to stay here, but now you've developed skills that can take you to where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you found a passion that you never knew you had. And they're like, oh, I've never thought of it that way. And I said, you know, there's lower level salary jobs like safety. There's other hourly jobs that you can apply for that are outside of line of progression that are all based on, you know, you applying, interviewing well, and getting hired for it. That don't have, you might still be in the union, but you're not in that line of progression anymore. And unless you try, you're never going to know whether or not you have a passion outside of what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And to think that you don't have to have skill to do what you're doing right now, well, I don't buy it. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at my core. And to watch somebody's facial expressions as the light bulbs turn on, as the gears start turning, as their perception is changing, that was the most rewarding conversation I think I've ever had. And at the end of it, they applied for other jobs. They started trying to do other things, and they started becoming a more productive team member. I saw a kind of a fire line in them. And the day that I had that conversation with them, as soon as I got in the car to go home, I called my wife, and I couldn't tell that story fast enough. I had to tell somebody. I was so excited because that's what makes it all the other bureaucracy and bull crap. That's what makes it worth it.
All the politics you deal with on a daily, that's the part of the job. It's part of the role.
That's the part. The politics and crap is what you see on a day-to-day basis. Oh, they got another meeting. Oh, they got, as an hourly person, you're just like, oh, they're never available because they're in a meeting, yada, yada. That's what makes it worth it.
Yep. 100%.
And those are the kinds of things that I want us to dissect, and I want us to look at, and in some ways continue to rekindle that passion every day for what we do on a daily basis. And, as a way to maybe get somebody interested in following leadership. Leaders, there's a perception of leadership that, I'm not a born natural leader.
I wasn't.
Leadership is taught.
Leadership is learned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, some people have charisma. That doesn't make them a good leader.
No.
But some people can sell you a pair of dirty underwear. By golly, I've got friends that are like that.
They're really good bards.
But having the passion to affect someone in a positive way and possibly change their life, there's no amount of money that covers that. That is joy right there.
I mean, for me, my biggest success, I came onto my second team that I was a supervisor for, the planogram team. The team was 8 people, 25, varied by the season, depending on how many counter we had to reset. We had to move around the store. And it was one of the last sets we were going to do before I got promoted to a different role. And we had one way that the diagram said we had to set this counter. I had a team member who had been disagreeing with me for months about how to do certain things, and they had an idea about how to do it better. And I said, okay, let's run with it. It's different than how the diagram says, but we can hold more product. We can present more product. We can make it to where customers can pick what they want without having to fight with the fixture, and it's readily available. Let's go for it. During my walk with my boss later that morning, during the handoff from nights to morning shifts as the store was opening, this team member thought they heard that I took ownership of that idea. Thought that I had said that it was my idea, everything was done, it was all this.
Perception's 9/10 of the law.
Perception is 9/10 of everything. The following week, because this was on a Friday, the following week I had a team huddle with everybody in the office, pulled everyone aside because I could tell that there was some animosity about something. Didn't know what it was. This team member brought up their concern that they said I was always taking credit for their ideas. I was taking credit for everyone's thought process just so I could look better. And my boss, now I had earned favor with my supervisor because I had put money in the bank. I had invested time in showing my boss that my team could do stuff better than anticipated. And this is the moment it was all going to cash in for me. My boss chimes in and says, you never took credit for that. He says that you did it. And he pointed at the person that was showing animosity to me. And he at the same time, they pointed at the other people that were supporting that animosity and said, you should be ashamed of yourselves because your boss also supported you. Your supervisor, every morning we're done with these counters, points at what you guys did. Not what he did. What you did. How you helped to reset the store. How you helped make it better. The clearance that we moved out. The change of products. And how everything was 100% stocked and ready to go each and every time that we did these changes. No one has ever done that before on this team. And you guys have come from struggling to being successful, not because of him, but because of you. And your supervisor gives you credit every day. So how about we stop having animosity towards him and rethink ourselves for a second? And from that day forward, that reinforced what you say in front of your team and how they perceive what you say in front of your team has to go hand in hand. And if you have any kind of animosity brewing between any one person on your team, they have more credit than you do in any conversation unless it's validated by somebody else. But it has to be validated by someone with more authority than you to carry the opposite effect.
Oh, you mean everything can't just be filtered to the frontline leader?
Nope.
Huh. Weird.
Not everything has to come from you.
No dig at all.
No dig at all. No. But you have to build the credit with your team and with your supervisors so that they pay for themselves. Yep. And you get the benefit. If you have a negativity in both spaces, you're losing the battle.
Yep. Well, I'm excited to do more episodes. I hope anybody listening is intrigued with what we're talking about, and I hope that it's, even just one person gets excited to want to take that next step in their journey.
Yeah, and it's the moments where you have that team member that cares a lot, but they're not sure how to share it, or they get frustrated with their peers, or they don't know how to take that step forward. Or you're the new leader that you see all these things you can do, but you're unsure of how you can take that step. Just listen to us. We don't have the best experiences. We're not the gods of leadership, but we've got two vastly different tenures in leadership journeys that can help feed off of each other and help develop a great story for you guys.
Yep. I think so.
I do too. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight or this morning or whatever. Thank you. Appreciate you. Catch you next time.